got a chance to see the new Legion M film, My Dead Friend Zoe. Let's talk about it right now. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thank you so much for spending time with me as we rant about movies, comic books, and television shows, as well as the occasional board game. I am your host, Frank Zoe. I'm an award-winning screenwriter, novelist, and comic book writer, as well as a filmmaker. And yeah, working on a screenplay right now for a client, and it looks like I might be doing another World War II book. If you haven't seen my other World War II book, it is a true story based on a woman who was part of the Jewish resistance in Berlin. It is called Escape from Berlin, the Diane Jacobs story. But you can check that out all on my Amazon page. But yeah, I got a chance to see this. But before we start, remember to give me a like, give me a subscribe if you can. And I'm trying to grow the channel out. But on top of that, I am connected with Moonstone Books. We are and have launched the Green Hornet Noir Anthology for the 90th anniversary of the Green Hornet. And this has some amazing stories by amazing writers. We have Timothy Zahn, who created Thrawn for the Star Wars series, as well as Kevin J. Anderson, who wrote for Dune, as well as among other stuff that he's done. He's so prolific. We have Keith DeCandido. We have cover art by Matt Wagner and interior art by Dennis Calero from Marvel. It's just a ton of people. The signed versions will not be available in stores, so definitely jump into greenhornetnoir.com. We are fully funded on Kickstarter, of course, because everybody jumped on this thing. We're about to unlock our first stretch goal. We're only like $200 away or something, not even $200 away, like $150 away. So jump in right now, help us cross that stretch goal, and I think we're going to be unlocking a few more before this thing is out. So anyway, go there, or there's a link in the description below as well. All right, so let's jump into My Dead Friend Zoe. So originally, Legion M was just kind of tossing money into productions that needed money, and then they would stamp their name on it. So in other words, if there was a $10 million production, they would throw $1 million into it, and then they would throw their name on it. But everything they did lost money. I mean, everything. I don't think they've made $1 on any of their productions. Recently, the last movie they did, I think, was their first full production. It was called Man in the White Van. I don't know what the budget was on it, but it had Sean Astin and Ali Larter on it. As well as the girl from Stargirl. I thought it was pretty decent. I thought it was a decent movie. I thought it was well done. It was a little bit of a horror, killer on the loose type of thing. And then I ended up talking with the guys from Legion M because, I didn't know if they needed a line producer, which is what I do. But they told me that they had this movie coming out, My Dead Friend Zoe. They have another movie coming out as well. So I got a pre-screen tonight. It was blind. I had no idea what I was going to see. And all of a sudden, I saw the name come up. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. I'll sit and watch this thing. There was a lot of people in there, too. It was, of course, it's not free to go, but, it's cheaper than going to a regular movie. It's with AMC. And I think it's a lot of the people that have, the A pass or A-list pass and stuff like that. But this is a multifaceted film. I found out that the original budget for this was $2.8 million, but they were looking to add Morgan Freeman to it, which would have increased the budget to $4.7 million. So he was in the film, so I'm going to assume that the budget is on the high end of $4.7 million. So they brought in Sonequa Martin Green from Star Trek and Walking Dead, and I have to say that you take her out of Star Trek and she can actually act. Because I was wondering, because I thought she was good in Walking Dead, but then she was in Star Trek and she was horrible. I mean, she was horrible for every season in that thing. But then she's in this, and suddenly her acting is through the roof. It also has Ed Harris. So Ed Harris and Sonequa Martin Green were credited as executive producers here, which means that they lent their name up front to raising money. And the way that Legion M raises money is through WeFunder. That's how they raise their money. I'm sure there's other ways, but that is the majority of how they raise money. So this movie was on the high end of $4 million, and I hope that they make it back. I don't know what kind of distribution they've got. Of course, they have AMC to some degree, but I don't know what that gets them. So this reminded me of, because this thing is very multifaceted in the different subject matters that it touches on. So this is written and directed by Kyle Houseman Stokes, and if you've never heard that name, it's because this is his first movie. This is his first feature, and he's writing and directing. So I got to hand it to the guy. He came out swinging. His first movie, and he's got Ed Harris and Morgan Freeman. Wow. So this is based on his short called Merritt and Zoe, which is now called My Dead Friend Zoe, which My Dead Friend Zoe makes it sound like a comedy, but it is very far from a comedy. It is not a comedy. But this is basically the true story, the true events. I'm not saying to say true story, true events, witnessed by Kyle Houseman Stokes. So he is ex-military, I think Army, and he hired a bunch of people in here that are ex-military or actors that were ex-military. Because at the end they show pictures, including Morgan Freeman, of their time in the military. But the storyline is, and you should know this going in, because you already know in the title that the main character, played by Natalie Morales, is not alive. And you know that right off the bat. So I'm not ruining anything there. It's very obvious when you see her that, there's nobody else can see her. So it's not a ghost story. I got to put that out. It's not a ghost story. It is a guilt story, right? So it's a PTSD story where Sonequa Martin Green is purely imagining her. It's she even knows that she's not real and still sees her. So, and I'm not going to say how she died or anything to that effect, but they were partners in the mechanic club of the Army in Afghanistan. So that is where the flashbacks continually go. And we start out with Sonequa Martin Green and her name is Merritt. I'm just going to say Merritt from now on. So Merritt is in this, group, a PTSD group, led by Morgan Freeman, where she will not talk about Zoe's death. She doesn't talk about Zoe's death throughout the entire film. So all we see is like lead up, but we never see her die until the very end, and even then it's even vague. So, but we know why, but how, but it was still vague. But anyway, so she is kind of down and out. The reason she has to take this group, which she doesn't want to take, is because she freaked out driving a forklift and almost killed one of her co-workers. So she has to take this class because she could go to jail. I don't know how any of that works, but that's kind of what they said. So meanwhile, her mom is in Tokyo, and her grandfather has Alzheimer's. So that's why it reminds me of On Golden Pond, because of Fonda's. I think Fonda has Alzheimer's too, and doesn't want to and can't be left alone, but he thinks he can, and that's Ed Harris in this. So she has to go take care of him, and in the meantime, taking care of him is kind of leading her out of this funk that she's in. because she idealized her grandfather to the point that's why she joined the military. The Zoe character is comedic because Natalie Morales is just she's a comedic actress. So she is the comedic portion of it, but that's all I can say about it being a comedy. Otherwise, it's kind of a tearjerker at a lot, and the guy she meets as well is pretty funny. He's just charming. So I like that guy as well. I don't know his name. He was an Indian actor. If you see him on the screen, so you have all these relationships going on. So you have the relationship between her and her grandfather. You got the relationship between her and her friend Zoe, who's dead. And then you have the relationship between her and her mother, which is only a very small portion of it. And then you have the relationship with her and the guy she's trying to date. So you have all these things that are interconnecting, but the real relationship is between her and Zoe and her grandfather. That's where the real intersection is, and how those two are trying to pull away from one another. And then you have Morgan Freeman's character that's trying to push this along, with her getting out. And the whole they kind of stole the Angel Studio shtick, where it's a pay it forward thing. They have that at the end. So they have a thing at the beginning, like where Kyle, the director, comes out and talks, and then they literally have it at the end. The message is coming up in 2 minutes. If you've watched any Angel Studios thing, especially Sound of Freedom, they say that the special message is coming up, and then the actors come out and talk in that after that 2-minute piece of the credits. So they're kind of stealing from Angel Studios. If you're going to steal, I guess steal from the best, because it really worked for them. He comes out and says that I started this nonprofit because we lost more veterans when they came back from suicide than we did in any of the wars, Iraq, Iran, whatever, Afghanistan. And so this is a movie to talk about suicide, to talk about Alzheimer's. So all of these things, all of these points are what the director wants to get across. And I think the estimation was that there's 127,000 vets that commit suicide from PTSD, which is 18 times the amount of people actually killed in the line of duty. So anyway, it's very interesting stuff, but that's why the whole PTSD with Sonequa Martin Green, that's why they're pushing that, where where she's kind of pushed to the limit of possibly committing suicide, that kind of thing, or trying to get her life on track, which inadvertently helping her grandfather is what helps her do that. And of course, then the grandfather's going through his mental issues and dealing with, and I got to say that in some ways, the dialogue was written correctly for Alzheimer's, in other ways it wasn't. Because as you guys know, I was taking care of Nichelle Nichols, who played the original Uhura from Star Trek during her final times. In fact, she was in my pilot. It was the final thing that she did before she passed. I was with her once a week because her son was taking care of her, and he needed to go out and do errands to pick up groceries, pick up whatever, medication, etc. every week. So they only lived, 20 minutes from me. So I would come over for the day, and I would do my work over there, and I would sit with her and that kind of thing. We would sign, autographs, all the stuff that, she would need to do. And she would ask me my name every 15 minutes. And I've known her for years, 2-3 years at that point. So he was actually pretty coherent in the film, which I guess he had to be. But if he really had Alzheimer's, he would have relapsed more often than he did, to the point where he would have seen his daughter as a young girl at times, because that happens. So I remember, so the husband had, so Nichelle's son had to go back to New Mexico, which is where he lived, because he moved in with her to help her do everything. So he was away from his wife for 2 years while he was wrapping up everything, and there's way more to that story. But anyway, so for that period of time, he had to go back to New Mexico, and he had to drop Nichelle off with an aged home for the 2 weeks that he was away. So she was only there for a couple weeks. That wasn't long. But anyway, so he tasked me with picking her up. So I went and picked her up, and I signed her out, and she got in the car with me. And of course, it was all pre-approved by phone that I would be picking her up. And she got in the car with me, and we're driving. And she turns to me, and she says, "I don't know who you are, but I know you because I feel comfortable with you." So she knew in her head that there were pieces missing, but it was instinctual. But we didn't see any of that in this movie, and I kind of wish we had seen more of it. So he falls or whatever else in here, but we didn't really get to see the memory degradation that actually is in real life of Alzheimer's. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out there, that they could have done more with that portion, and I experienced it firsthand. So, and it's pretty sad, actually, pretty sad. But she was a great woman. She liked to laugh, and in fact, it was the Comedy Central did like Drunk History and had her, her story as Drunk History, and I would show that to her every week, and it was like the first time she had ever seen it. Anyway, that's it for me. Now, keeping in mind that this film is not a comedy, it has some comedic elements to it, but it really touches on real world stuff. And if that bothers you, if it's a drama that bothers you and you don't want to see it or support it, then I understand that, if it's not a movie for you. But if it is a movie for you, if you find those things interesting, and the movie is well acted, very, very well acted, I gotta say. I'm surprisingly well acted considering what Sonequa Martin Green is capable of as Star Trek, which isn't much. And I never noticed this before, but she almost has like a Romulan freaking crinkle between her eyes. It was like really bothering me. She would do this, like crinkle around, like this bulge would happen between her eyes. It was really weird. But anyway, so with that being said, it's still very, very well acted. I do highly recommend the film. I do highly recommend you support the film if those are subjects that you're okay with. And I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 purely from the acting standpoint. And also the setting that they used, all the stuff, I liked a lot of it. Morgan Freeman did a good job as well, although he was more a sideline type character, but so he didn't have a whole lot to work with. But Ed Harris had a ton to work with, and he really took that to the next level. All right, well, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Remember, give me that like, give me that subscribe if you can. And if you want to jump in on the Green Hornet Noir anthology book, hardcover, with Timothy Zahn, Kevin J. Anderson, cover art by Matt Wagner, Dennis Calero on interior art, just a pile of people. There is a signature version as well. Anyway, check out the link in the description below or go to greenhornetnoir.com. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching, guys. All right, bye-bye.